Hey everyone, in this video I want to share with you something about a common myth I see with the keto diet or ketogenesis and why that is not actually burning as much fat as you think it is. And I want to present to you something that actually will in place of that and will do what you're trying to achieve with ketogenesis, right? So, first, in order to address this issue, let's look at kind of the history of the keto diet, why it was even invented in the first place. So, this will make more sense. The ketogenic diet came around in the 20s, and the purpose was as a solution for patients with seizures, right? Epileptic patients. So, previously, the treatment for epilepsy was fasting, right? And they even came up with a method using a low calorie vegetarian diet as well. And so it was kind of discovered in the 20s that by giving patients a high fat diet, they were able to continue producing these what are called ketones, right? So ketones are just produced when your body is using fat as its energy source. It's kind of produced when it breaks apart that fat molecule or whatnot. And so basically they found that this high fat diet was a way to kind of keep producing these ketone bodies, but without having to keep patients in a fasted state, which obviously has limits and can be more difficult to do, right? So, and the reason fasting worked as well, they don't entirely know, but I'm going to tell you what I kind of think is going on. You see, the body actually uses glucose for energy in many different ways. You have your muscles, your nervous system, and the brain, right? The brain primarily uses glucose for energy. And so when you go into ketosis, essentially, or you do this kind of like low or no carb diet, you're going to basically use up all of your body's glycogen stores. You're going to get rid of all of excess kind of sugars and anything that it can use for energy in the form of glycogen. So it's going to turn to using fats instead. And so I think the reason this kind of helps with seizures is, see, seizures are kind of like the brain is like firing too much. It's like it's too excitable, right? So you've got uh, all of these neurons and whatnot firing rapidly. And so what I think is kind of happening is it's a way of suppressing that, because see, glucose is a faster source of energy, right? Let's say you go out sprinting or you're going to use your muscles really quickly. It goes for glucose first because it's a quick burst of energy. That's what the brain wants, right? But if you feed it a slower form of energy, a less efficient form of energy, well, it's not going to fire as rapidly, right? It's almost like putting a half grade of fuel into a car and only getting like half the horsepower out of it, right? So I think it's kind of slowing down what's happening with seizure patients by getting them into ketosis, right? And so that's great if you are someone who has epilepsy, but and also I will say it's finding some benefits for people with Alzheimer's too, and that's just because the ketones can cross the blood brain barrier, and they're thinking that Alzheimer's is kind of like a type 3 or type 4 diabetes, where basically the brain is not able to use the glucose for fuel anymore, but it can use the ketones instead. So, but anyway, unless you are a someone suffering from seizures or you are someone with Alzheimer's or dementia, I'm going to tell you why that really does not matter. as far as going into ketosis and raising your ketone levels when it comes to fat loss. Okay, so realize this was never invented for fat loss. So basically, when you are in ketosis or your body is producing these ketones, all that is saying is that your body is using fat as fuel, right? But when the purpose of the high fat diet was that the people didn't have to fast and use their own body fat anymore as this fuel to create the ketones. Instead, they could get the fat from the foods that they were ingesting. So when you go into ketosis, all that's saying is that your body is burning a form of fat for fuel. That's not your own body fat. That's what you have just ingested, right? So, guys, I could sit and eat a 9,000 calorie tub of lard, pure fat, and I will be in ketosis, but I'm not going to be losing weight. I'm actually going to be gaining weight instead, right? And I've seen even a pro keto site admit this same thing. Okay, so you have to understand that being in ketosis does not equal I'm burning my own body fat, right? So, what's actually the way to achieve this burning of our own body fat that we are trying to achieve with ketosis? Well, it's what the original protocol was, and that's fasting or intermittent fasting. All right, guys, so I'm going to show you actually from a pro keto site who agrees that this is a myth and this is not working. Guys, so keto myth, if you want to burn fat, you need to be in ketosis. Truth, being in ketosis is not the same as being able to burn fat. All being in ketosis means is that there's a certain level of ketones in your bloodstream, which isn't a requirement for burning fat for fuel. In fact, being in ketosis is also not a guaranteed path to fat loss. You can easily be both in ketosis and either remaining the same body weight or gaining weight. That's what I was saying. So you have to stop thinking about it in terms of ketosis or not ketosis. The way you need to look at it, and this has really helped me. I've lost weight so easily doing this, guys. Not even trying. You have to start thinking of it in terms of either you're fed or you're fasted, right? So when you are fed, your body is going to be burning whatever is in your stomach up as fuel, right? Once you burn through all of that and any glycogen reserves and whatnot, your body is going to switch over to burning more fat for energy, its own fat, because it has nothing else left to burn. That's the state that you want to be in. And consequently, that's the state where your insulin is going to be down, right? That's the state where your blood sugar levels are also going to be down, right? So your body is going to be sending all kind of signals to burn its own fat reserves, right? And that's the power of fasting or intermittent fasting, right? So by doing intermittent fasting, you're going to actually be achieving what you are trying to achieve with keto or ketosis. Are you following me? And guys, also don't believe these people say that you can, eat a stick of butter or, you know, oil or something and just stay in this fat burning ketosis state. So it just doesn't work like that. And we know that trading carbohydrates for fats, we get the same exact weight loss, right? There's no difference. In fact, fats are actually a worse macronutrient when it comes to weight gain, and that's what the studies are actually showing, right? And this makes sense. When they actually want to get mice overweight and obese for studies, they actually feed them a high fat diet and it gets them overweight. Guys, just because they are eating a lot of fat does not put them in this magic state of ketosis where they are never gaining weight or they're burning fat. It does not happen. Guys, you just have to remember it is calories in, calories out. 80% of the time or more, it is calories in, calories out. That's the predominant rule. It holds true for all the macronutrients. And fat is worse off when we look at the calories in, calories out, because we know that when we overfeed people fats compared to carbohydrates, they actually gain a larger percentage of fat when they are consuming fats rather than carbohydrates, right? The body prefers to use protein and carbohydrates for other processes, for energy for muscles and the rest of the body, protein for rebuilding, right? But fat, it will just store it directly as fat. It uses much less energy to convert fat into adipose tissue, your own body fat, right? For carbohydrates and protein, it's much more expensive of a process energy wise. It has to break it down and restructure it into fat. So it prefers to take fats and store them as fats. It prefers to take other macronutrients and use them in other ways, guys. So uh, when we overfeed with carbohydrates, I've even seen where they overfeed subjects with candy. We're talking like pure sugar, like 1,000 calories, guys, of carbohydrates, and people will actually gain proportionally more lean mass and muscle tissue compared to fat. Yet if we just feed you fat, it ends up being predominantly fat that is gained in the body. So just don't be tricked into thinking that eating fat will keep you in this magic state of ketosis where you're going to be burning fat, because that's not the case. And let me also clarify something in case somebody comments about this. I understand that it's not 100% calories in, calories out. And this actually applies to two macronutrients, not to fat. It applies to protein and carbs, right? And what you get is with carbs, right? I'm not talking about processed carbs, but with healthy carbs, you get fiber. Fiber actually has a thermic effect, meaning your body uses more calories in order to digest it. Protein also has a thermic effect, meaning that same thing, your body is going to use extra calories in order to digest it. Fat, this is not the case. So when it comes to body composition, the two macros that are the best for body composition is protein and carbs, right? Fat is not. So just be aware of that. I'm going to make some future videos talking more about this, because this is another common misunderstanding where people are just so carbophobic now. And that's not what is causing all of the actual weight gain that we're seeing. And we have the research to back this up as well. And guys, when I wanted to increase my weight, of course, you're always told to increase your calories. So I increased my fat intake. And you always hear like, oh, fat's not going to make you, fat, all da 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 da. Guys, my weight went up and my fat definitely went up. It was predominantly fat. And when I want to lose weight, I increase my fasting window, I drop the fats down, and the weight goes down. I'm telling you, it works. And 16-8 is a really good intermittent fasting protocol. There's a couple different ones out there. This will be a topic for a future video, which I will talk more about weight loss, as well as some other protocols that are really good, backed up by science, and that have worked for me as well, to help you guys out. One last tip I really wanted to share with you: if you want to really increase your fat burning while you're in this fasted state, and remember that this is the ketogenesis that we want to be in, where we are fasted and we're burning our own body fat and not just the fats that we're ingesting, right? So once you're in this fasted state, is one way you can really maximize the fat burning even more is to do some kind of form of fasted cardio. That's just cardio while you are fasted. But also, let me talk about, you don't want to be in a state of cardio where you are huffing and puffing and you have your max heart rate too high, you see when you are in that state of kind of huffing and puffing and wheezing, that means your body is using glycogen, right? That's like when you're sprinting, sprinters use glycogen, right? For energy, that's a quick burst of energy. What you want is a slow, steady state of cardio that you can do for a longer period of time. And walking, guys, walking is perfect for this. You want to get your heart rate into about 100 beats per minute to 120 beats per minute. That's kind of like this really ideal range where you are burning fat. And this is where you can still talk. You can have a conversation. You're not huffing and puffing. So you want to basically exert yourself or walk as fast as you can uh, without getting into a state where you're huffing and puffing and gasping for air, right? So you want to keep that heart rate probably like under 120, and any kind of movement, just moving around is great as well, because you're going to be in a state of being aerobic instead of anaerobic. So aerobic is where you are burning fat, right? That's where your body is utilizing fat for energy. And the reason it does that is because fat is a slower form of energy. So when you're not exerting yourself as much, it can use more fat, and it will use predominantly more fat to give you energy through that, especially when you're in a fasted state. So that's one tip right there. Guys, so hopefully this video was enlightening to you. I hope I was able to reach somebody out there. Let me know what you think, guys, and stick around for the next video. Thanks.